Welcome back to TESS'S Cryptids. This time we are headed to the swamps of South Carolina, home of the lizard man.
Oh, the lizard man.
This creature is said to be 7 feet tall,
Wow.
green and reptilian,
Okay.
with a real taste for messing with cars. It's a story that blew up in the media, and we are going to dive into why it captured so much attention.
You know what's fascinating about the lizard man is that he's not quite like other cryptids.
Okay.
Think about Bigfoot.
Right.
Often seen as a guardian of nature, even a benevolent figure,
Mm-hmm.
the lizard man.
Yeah.
He's more of a troublemaker, damaging property,
Mm.
lurking in the shadows, attacking people.
Right.
Is he a protector?
Yeah.
A menace? That ambiguity might be part of why he's so captivating.
That's a really good point. He
Yeah.
doesn't fit neatly into the quote-unquote good monster or bad monster box, does he? So where does this legend begin?
Well, the first rumblings started in July of 1988 with a police report in Lee County, South Carolina.
Okay.
A car parked near Scape swamp was found damaged. Scratches. What looked like bite marks. The works.
Oh, wow.
Strange for sure. But no actual lizard man sighting yet.
Just enough to get people whispering, right?
Yeah.
Setting the scene for what's to come.
Exactly. Then, just 2 weeks later, a 17-year-old named Christopher Davis has an encounter that really launches the legend. He said he was driving home late at night, got a flat tire near the swamp, classic horror movie setup.
Right.
And as he's changing the tire, this creature comes out of the darkness and approaches him.
I can only imagine what is going through his head at that moment.
Davis's description was incredibly detailed.
Okay.
7 feet tall,
Wow.
green, 3-fingered.
Oh, my God.
Red eyes covered in scales. And it wasn't just a quick glimpse.
Yeah.
He claimed this creature actually climbed onto his car.
Okay, now that is terrifying. It's one thing to hear something rustling in the bushes. It's another to have it on top of your car. No wonder this story took off.
It spread like wildfire.
Wow.
Local businesses were printing Lizard Man t-shirts faster than you could blink.
Oh.
The Chamber of Commerce was loving the attention, and a radio station even put up $1 million reward for the creature's capture. Talk about a media frenzy.
So it's like the swamp suddenly became a tourist attraction.
Absolutely. But all this attention also led to more and more quote-unquote sightings. And that's where things get tricky. Are these genuine encounters, or are people seeing what they want to see because the idea of the lizard man is already out there?
It's like when you're a kid and convinced there's a monster under the bed. Suddenly every shadow looks like a claw.
It plays into our psychology, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're primed to find evidence that supports what we already believe, especially when it comes to something as thrilling as a monster lurking in the swamp. And this whole idea of belief versus evidence is going to be key as we unpack this legend further.
Okay, so we've got this initial police report then, Christopher Davis's terrifying encounter, and now all these other quote-unquote sightings popping up. Where does this story go from there?
Well, just when things couldn't get any wilder, an airman named Kenneth Orr claimed he actually shot the lizard man. Yeah. He even provided scales and blood as proof.
Wait, so there was physical evidence. This is getting intense.
It seemed like the smoking gun, right?
Yeah.
But 2 days later, Orr confessed that it was all a hoax. The evidence was fabricated.
Oh.
The encounter never happened.
Wow, that's a huge twist.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder why someone would go to those lengths to perpetuate the legend. Was it a prank gone wrong or a deliberate attempt to keep the story alive?
It's fascinating to consider, isn't it? Do some people want to believe so much that they're willing to contribute to the myth-making, even if it means stretching the truth? This case with Orr really highlights the complex relationship we have with these sorts of stories.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer to the whole belief versus evidence thing we were talking about. It's one thing to misinterpret something you see in the dark. It's another to create a whole elaborate hoax around it.
Absolutely. And it makes us question other accounts.
Right.
Even if people genuinely believe what they saw, could they be misidentifying something more mundane, like a bear, for example? Law enforcement started to suggest that misidentified bears could explain many of the sightings.
So is that it then? Case closed. It's just bears lumbering around the swamp?
Not necessarily. In 2008, a couple reported damage to their car near the swamp.
Okay.
They even found blood traces, which, when tested, turned out to be from a dog. The sheriff suggested it might have been a coyote or wolf. So again, we have a possible explanation,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily rule out every other account.
It's like with any good mystery, there are always more questions than answers. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the lizard man's ambiguous nature, his history, the hoaxes, and the possible explanations. What about Scape or swamp itself?
Right.
What role does the setting play in all of this?
Ah, the swamp.
Mm.
It's not just a backdrop, it's practically a character in this story. Swamps have always been places of mystery and folklore. Think
Mhm.
about the cultural associations.
Yeah.
They're dark, full of shadows, teeming with unseen creatures, shrouded in mist. It's the perfect environment for a monster to take root in our imagination.
It's like those old horror movies where the fog rolls in and, something bad is about to happen.
Exactly. The setting primes us for the possibility of something lurking just beyond our sight.
Right.
And Scape or Swamp, with its real-life history steeped in stories and legends, is especially primed for a creature like the lizard man to emerge in the public consciousness.
So the swamp itself contributes to the legend. And that makes me think about South Carolina's overall cultural identity. It's a state rich in folklore, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's important to consider. A creature like the lizard man wouldn't necessarily resonate the same way in, say, a bustling metropolis. But in a place like South Carolina, with its connection to nature, its history, and its embrace of storytelling, a creature tied to the land just makes sense. It fits into the cultural fabric.
It's like the lizard man is woven into the very landscape of South Carolina. You mentioned earlier that he's different from cryptids like Bigfoot. But he also seems different from creatures like the Loch Ness Monster, who's very much tied to a specific location.
Mm-hmm.
The lizard man feels more integrated into the region as a whole.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it might be part of why the legend persists. He's not just a monster in a swamp, he's part of South Carolina's identity, for better or worse.
So even if we never definitively prove or disprove his existence, his story continues to fascinate us. And that brings us back to the question we posed at the beginning. Is he pro-monster or anti-monster?
Right, and that's the real heart of the matter, isn't it? The lizard man defies easy categorization.
Yeah.
He's a creature of chaos, both destructive and captivating.
Mhm.
And that perhaps is why he's so compelling. We're drawn to the mystery, to the unknown, to the possibility that there are forces out there beyond our understanding.
So even if he's not real in the traditional sense, his legend continues to hold a powerful grip on our imaginations. It makes you wonder, is there a part of us that's almost disappointed if it turns out there's nothing out there? Is there a part of us that wants to believe?
Perhaps. There's a certain allure to the unexplained, to the idea that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be unraveled.
Yeah.
And even if we ultimately chalk up these sightings to misidentification, hoaxes, or the power of suggestion, there's still a valuable takeaway here.
I think you're right. The lizard man, whether real or not, tells us something about ourselves,
Yeah.
about our need to make sense of the world, our fascination with the unknown, and our desire for stories that capture our imagination.
Exactly. It's a reflection of our culture, our psychology, and our relationship with the natural world.
Right.
And in a way, isn't that more interesting than a simple yes or no answer about whether the creature exists?
Definitely. It's like we said earlier, it's not just about finding proof or debunking myths.
Right.
It's about exploring the deeper meaning behind these legends. And the lizard man, with his ambiguous nature, his ties to South Carolina's identity, and his ability to spark debate and fascination, is a perfect example of that.
He embodies the wildness of the swamp, the power of storytelling, and the enduring human fascination with the unexplained. And that's something worth pondering, whether you're a diehard believer or a skeptical observer.
Well said.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think the lizard man is real? Is he a protector or a menace? Does his story resonate with you? We'd love to hear your take on this fascinating cryptid. Head over to our social media and let us know what you think. And join us next time on TESS'S Cryptids, when we will be exploring a creature even more elusive, even more shrouded in mystery. Get ready to venture into the heart of the Himalayas as we search for the legendary Yeren.